Lauren. So start by saying hi. My name is Kate Guillen. I'm the founder of Simplicity Ops. I love doing these spotlights where we highlight other experts in the industry that just do cool work for financial advisors and RIAs. And Lauren is somebody that I've gotten the chance to know over the last couple of months, who runs an amazing business. And I'm just really honored and grateful that you know, are donating your time to share your expertise with our community. So Lauren, thank you very much for being here today. I'm going to turn it over to you and mute myself and monitor the chat and the Q&A for you and let you roll.
Awesome. All right. Thanks, Kate, for the opportunity. I'm going to share my screen here so we can get going. And thank you all for your time. I know everyone's busy and taking a little bit of time out of your day. Appreciate it. So I'm hoping today that we're going to be able to come away from this with some good takeaways. So we'll go ahead and jump in. And like Kate said, we've got a few kind of leave behinds that we'll send post call. So just to give you guys a little bit of an idea of who's behind the screen here. So my name's Lauren Hong again. I run Out and About Communications. We started nearly a dozen years ago. We are a full service marketing agency exclusively working in the financial services space. Actively, about 75% of our clients are within the, I'll say the wealth management RAA community. So we know that space really well. We train our team against all the SEC jargon. And frankly, like the work that we're doing is around long sales cycles, right? A lot of you know that clients aren't ready to buy day one. And there's a lot that goes into that. So what I'm hoping to do today is really to be able to pull together some of those kinds of, I'll call them maybe like best kept secrets or some kind of lessons learned that we've seen along the way that work for firms. So before we get started, I want to just start with a quick poll. So if you want to, I believe we can drop these questions in the chat there. So just kind of like, why are you here? Are you lost? Maybe you need some marketing help. Maybe you could use some tips. Do you want to learn like what works for advisors? Or maybe you just are thinking about marketing, but you haven't done something yet. Or maybe it's a combination thereof. It might be 1, 3, 2, 4. So would love to hear kind of where folks are at. I don't think I can see the chat, so I'd be curious, Kate, if you're seeing any
Number
comments.
3, just
Oh, there
started,
it is.
need some help.
Okay.
Kind of all over the place. Lots of number 3s.
Okay, cool. Yeah, lots of now I'm seeing the chat. There it goes. Okay, yep. All right, cool. So yeah, lots of number 3s. All right, cool. So I'm gonna hit on that. And well, kind of hit on all of them too. Give some tips. Okay, cool. Also, we are gonna have room at the end for Q&A, and a lot of this I'm gonna say is gonna be really kind of dependent on your particular situation. So I want to make sure we can get really specific in the Q&A as well. All right, so today's theme. So sometimes marketing can feel like this, like super squirrel, major shiny object syndrome. You know, all of us can feel that, especially if you're a business owner. You're probably a big idea thinker. You've got, you're seeing vision, these sorts of things. Or frankly, if you're in a business development seat, which a lot of people that are business owners and they're also managing business development, you hear stuff, you see stuff. It's really easy to get super shiny object syndrome. So today what we're going to do, we've got really 3 main points. The first one is like, how do we tune out the noise so that we can really focus and make our efforts really, really strong? The second one is we're going to talk a little bit more about like what works for advisors and how to tailor that for your specific firm. And then the third is I'm going to go through a case study for a firm that we've worked with that's, I'll call it, it's slightly complex, but it's something that could be applied across a number of firms. Okay. So first up is how do we tune out the noise? So if everyone can just grab like pen and paper or maybe like scribble a note in an email message, whatever it is, but you can just take a minute to write down if you were to call out in the next 6 months to 2 years, what would be your top 3 business goals? It does not have to be marketing related. Just take a minute to just call out your top 3 business goals. Give everyone a minute to do that. So I often hear things like, we want to hire. Maybe there's an objective. You might want to like do some acquisition. It might be like a website redesign. There might be something around operations and scaling your systems. So guarantee that even if it's not an explicit marketing goal, like a website redesign, marketing's probably gonna like touch it in some sort of way. So as we go through this conversation today, I just want to make sure that any of the things that we're sharing, that your business goals are going to be able to help to tune out the noise, to be able to map a direct connection between your marketing objective or between your business objective and your marketing tactic that you'd work on. It's going to help us to kind of like clear out what's important and put priorities in place. So we will come back to that as we move forward. But again, it's around focus. So just like this little pup here and the squirrel, like we're totally focused on what's important as we move forward. So with that, I want to make sure we're not putting the cart before the horse, or in this case, the cart before the dog, or however you want to say it. But our business goals are going to help us to make sure that we are aligned on what those critical pieces are for our business as we proceed forward, which is also going to help to reduce the shiny object syndrome for all the marketing noise. So with that, I wanted to first introduce with the business goals in mind, what we call Repoint Out and About, our four rings marketing strategy. So in a nutshell, and I'll go into each one of these in a little bit more depth, and I'm going to get into the tacticals for what works, but I think it's important that we frame it. So first of all, we've got our business strategy. So our business strategy is really wrapped around our marketing strategy and everything else. So if our business strategy shifts, then our marketing strategy would then shift as well. Our marketing strategy is going to impact what tactics and things we actually work on. And then it's going to allow us to be able to measure, to be able to either amplify the noise or to be able to kind of trim the fat for what's not working. So with business strategy, just to further clarify, you think about things like your mission statement, vision, values, short or long-term goals. I know a lot of firms work with like Schwab, consultants, they work with others to really zero in on these efforts. Or you might have something that you've kind of scribbled on paper, it might have something that's more formal that needs to be dusted off, just to kind of frame out what this definition is. The second is around our marketing strategy. So sometimes people think about marketing strategy and they go right to the tactics, but just to more kind of tightly define it, because this is really going to impact what tactics we would choose to work on for the business. Things like our brand and how do we want to position ourselves in the market against our different, like against, the firm down the street, what makes us different. And that's not just things like fee only or fiduciary, but like those are really important aspects, or even your service model. These are really important, but there's oftentimes further differentiators that help you to really stand out against when you're kind of comparing apples to apples against other firms. Your target market, who are you going after? This again helps us to really kind of zero in on our efforts. Our brand, how do you position yourself in the market, both visually and then also how do you sound? And this how you sound piece is really important because there's times of crisis, and there's also times of just day to day and knowing that kind of consistent voice and tone. Digital assets, so these are just all your templates you use, what social media channels you'd use, and then of course like your branding budget or what kind of resources you want to put behind things. And drop questions as we're going along too. Go ahead and drop those into the chat. Happy to address those as we move forward. So the next one is projects. So this is kind of what I'm going to call the sweet spot of like what actually works for firms. I'm going to get into more tactics in a minute. But one of the challenges that I see a lot of firms have, and I'm going to get to this as we like even more, is they try to do a lot of things. They get the shiny object syndrome of like they may start with like a great plan, and we all do this. Like we're all human, right? Like it's easy to get shiny object syndrome. Start with a great plan, might get going like in the new year for the next 30 or 60 days, and then something else comes in, something else comes in. And then all of a sudden we've got all these spinning tops. And we've done something at like 30%, something at 80%, something at 10%, maybe something at 100%. But there's nothing that is really, really, really done well in order to be able to scale and to show those efforts. So one of the key takeaways you'll hear me repetitively talk about is identifying one project or one tactic and going all in on that. And once you're able to do that really well, then you can layer on additional efforts. And then the last one is measure. So measure is the key piece where you go, okay, we've done one project really well. We're starting to see how it works. We're going to layer on another project. We're starting to see how that works. And then you can start to be able to figure out what's actually working and where you're putting your resources to map back up to that bigger picture story. So I want to give you an example of how that works, how we've applied that for us at Out and About, and I'll give you a firm example here shortly in a minute. So this is kind of tactical alignment. So for us, our mission statement is we are really looking to be the nationwide go-to marketing agencies for financial services companies or those that serve them. And they're really on a growth path. So it's really our mission. When you look at a marketing strategy, actually, right around last year, this time, we said we need to refresh our brand aesthetic to be better matched to our identified target market and where the business is going. So this is a really big project, honestly. It's like how much do we deviate from kind of our brand for where we know we are, but where we're trying to position and where we're going. So we did a whole brand refresh that helped to really impact all the other projects and the work that we're doing. After that, we did a website redesign, which if anyone's done a website redesign, and especially if you've done it from scratch, it is a hunky project. Like I'm talking, you're probably going to be in it for 6 to 8 months. It's kind of like working on a mini business plan. I mean, you're thinking about the structure and the architecture of the website. You've got sales mixed in there. You've got business mixed in there, your whole aesthetic. It's a really hunky project. Then the other piece that we've worked on is we call it our On Purpose series. So this is an interview where actually over the last 3 years, we've been interviewing different people in financial services. Kate's been one of our interviewees. And honestly, we started it as a blog, Q&A. Then it went to a vlog. So it was like video, blog content. And then it went to a podcast, and then the podcast and blog combo is very Kits' style. Like it's the whole audio transcript, everything going on. We've now dialed up our efforts and we're doing this pretty consecutively, pretty much weekly, with new guests that are coming out. So it's been a lot of effort, honestly, but we went all in. So now we're in a place where we can start to actually measure and see what works, putting more manpower behind it. We know which guests we want to be able to have on or not. We've got some data against it. And frankly, I see the numbers in our pipeline. I see them in our consultants and their center of influences that we connect with. They see it very much as a resource hub, which is super cool to see. And I also see it in the new business closed. So I'm starting to see this both through commentary on the side that's happening, through the data, and then through the community that's being built around this. But it's one of those things where it's easy to get started, but it's really hard to keep it going.
I have a question. How are you
Yes.
actually measuring that? Are you using a CRM or some sort of business management tool to track all this stuff?
Google Analytics is a great friend, especially
Got
when
it.
we look at click-throughs. For us, LinkedIn is a really big social channel that we're utilizing. So we're also looking at engagement levels on that side. And we're also looking at through from a CRM perspective, right? Our pipeline size year to date. We're looking at it from new business closed, if we've seen an increase in that. We also look at it. Frankly, this is like more of a non-tangible, but it's a kind of what I was referring to earlier of we've got honestly like clients, centers of influence, connections in the industry. We're seeing those numbers. And we're also seeing it with the diversification of lead sources that are coming in. That was one of our efforts that we wanted to put forth as a business as well. And that's helping to pick up new business across the board for that as well.
Very
So
cool.
it's a smattering of things, and I think that it's sort of being able to connect those dots to be able to help to tell the story for where efforts are spent. So I want to just do another poll here, and feel free to keep jumping in with questions, but just going through those 4 projects, looking back at your business goals, is there something that kind of spoke to you? Like, okay, like if we were to take time, would we spend time more on the business strategy right now? Would it be more on kind of the marketing cleanup of the brand and where we're going and getting clear on our target market? Or we're like, we got all that going on, we're ready for projects. Or you're like, we got the projects going on, we got to dial up what's working or not working. So you're welcome to drop it in the chat. If you feel comfortable, you can also just notate it. But I just think it's good to kind of take a moment to pause to try to connect those dots kind of between those rings. So. All right, so I'm going to get into a little bit more of what works for advisor marketing, which is I think a lot of people that were asking these questions earlier on or called out this as what was of interest. Okay, so this is the truth. There's a lot of noise. There's a lot of noise in our world, and I think especially today and post-COVID, now that we're starting to get out more, there are so many messages, and there's messages like this, right? You should be doing social media, events, collateral. I see if somebody else, but they've got a great tagline, you know, they've got a newsletter. They know all where all their data goes and exactly how it connects to their lead sources. We should be writing a book. Like, it goes on and on and on and on. So I'll tell you that honestly, a lot of these things work for advisors. The challenge is actually just focusing on one project, but identifying the project that is authentically the right fit, not only if it's for your firm or for the individuals within your firm. And so that's kind of the kind of art meets science of this, and I'll call it more of the strategy piece, is really is being able to zero in on the tactic for what works. So you might be like, okay, Lauren, that's great, but I actually want to know, like, what should I be doing? So I'll tell you a little bit more about what advisors do and share some resources to help narrow that down for you guys. So if you've got your business strategy looking good, your marketing strategies looking good, again, focus on kind of one thing, crush it, next thing, do a great job, crush that, and you can start to measure it. Some of the things, though, that I'm going to call the basics of what a lot of firms do: LinkedIn as a social channel. Tons of firms are on LinkedIn, and part of the secret sauce to this is LinkedIn wants you to pay for your company's page, post on your page. And if you don't have baked into your handbook compliance regulations around what advisors can or cannot post, it's an opportunity to be able to do that, because this is a human to human business. You are out there, boots on ground, building those relationships, shaking those hands. And LinkedIn is a really great way to be able to share and stay top of mind with the community that you've built. So LinkedIn is definitely a hot channel. But if that's not authentic to you, then I think that's important to note too. Regular newsletters. I will say I see these both in firm-wide newsletters that the firm is sending on behalf of the firm to all clients. I also see these just with advisors that are regularly communicating with their clients. And I think especially firms that are more, I'll call it like dimensional funds kind of mindset, where, that sort of more peace of mind, let like, it's going to be okay. That messaging that you're putting out there, kind of that proactive messaging. I especially see firms, sending regular communications, not in a tuned up capacity, but there is a drip of that. Might be quarterly. Quarterly market updates. I see that especially end of year, kind of end of year webinars for the look ahead and market reports. See a lot of firms that have clients that want to attend those webinars, and as a result, prospects often attend them. A polished website, making sure that it reflects your firm, not just like the look and feel, but the strategy of the firm and who you're trying to attract. And then original blog content. It's really easy to grab off the shelf content, and sometimes that works as like we just need to kind of put a band-aid on it and keep it going. But original content, original video as well, that just is more of who you are as a person. I see these things as, I'm going to call it, more basics for what work for firms.
I have a question, Lauren. You and I
Yeah.
were kind of touching on this before we jumped in. Again, about like tuning out the noise. One of the things I hear is like, you need to post regularly. It needs to be daily. It needs to be authentic. It needs to come from your heart. My two questions are like, what is the appropriate like cadence for LinkedIn posting? You kind of touched on the newsletters. Like, is there such thing as too much? Is there such thing as too little? And what are your thoughts on using AI to help generate content?
So, too little is probably going to be if you're posting like twice a year, even quarterly. Like, LinkedIn is going to love a good algorithm where you're feeding it, right? Like any algorithm, Google is the same way. So if you're going to, target to post, I'd say, once a week, once every 2 weeks, but you don't want to just post to post. So I think it's just a matter of getting into a habit to be able to do that. And if that even means like a set it and forget it of more evergreen types of post and they're scheduled out, that's fine too. But I think it's just an easy way to be able to stay top of mind with the natural network that you've built. And then, like a lot of everything now, AI is built into it. So I think it's a great way to kind of maybe help reframe something you've started. It's a great way to be able to help brainstorm. But going back to that marketing strategy component of voice and tone, you want to make sure it sounds like you and you want to make sure it sounds like your firm, right? If you don't use emojis, don't let AI put emojis in. Like if you don't use certain words, then it's not your style. Maybe you're more of a technical firm, and as a result, with the technicality of the way that you speak, you might attract a certain audience that really resonates with that. So be you. So I think there's a really like a AI can help us kind of shortcut stuff, but I don't feel like it's an end all solution to content creation. At the end of the day, it's really about you, and in the long sales cycle, you are what helps close it, and you don't want to lose that authenticity. That would be my 2 cents on it. So, and I think our team would agree with that.
No, I,
Anything
I,
else?
I would
Yeah.
agree too. Again, my firsthand experience, when you try to be somebody that you're not, you attract people that are attracted to that somebody that you're not, and not your authentic self. And then you go through a relationship. It doesn't work.
We also see when we look at the data across our firms that we work with, that the number one page off after the homepage, which is no surprise, right? Everyone goes to the homepage. It's the team pages. People care about you. You're part of the difference. You know, putting some extra love into those pages. And of course, it's important to call out, if you've got certain certifications or what have you, but just like if you have a dog, if you've got a family, if you've got whatever you feel comfortable sharing, you like golfing, or you, I don't know, like to travel or garden, like these are things that make it feel real. You're asking people to talk about really, they're not easy topics, right? Money and
People do
politics, right?
business
Those
with
are,
people. Right.
yeah, so it can be tough. Okay, I'll keep us moving. Okay, so you guys are going to get these two downloadable, they're like downloadables, they're one sheets. They're like flow charts. So Kate's going to send them out, team's going to send them out post a webinar, but so there's one that I wanted to just kind of go a little bit deeper. This first one over here, it's connected to the business strategy and the marketing strategy, is like, where do I begin with my marketing? Like, what does that whole flow process look like? So this will take you through it for where you're at. It's a simplified version, but it will kind of give you like a high level of steps. And then the second one are like projects. So the projects will help you to identify as you go through this flow where your potential gaps are in the marketing funnel. So for example, you might just need to turn up the volume, which is more top of the funnel efforts, or you may be in a position where you've turned up the volume, you've put a lot of resources behind those projects, but you need that audience to actually start to convert to like interested prospects, which you might take on more tactics like webinars or seminars or what have you. It depends on your target demographic. And you might go, okay, well, that group, we've done all of that, but like we need them now to have meetings with us. And how do we stay top of mind? And that's where bottom of the funnel tactics come in. And that's stuff like case studies, testimonials, if you're comfortable with that, awards, these kinds of things that kind of are that deeper credibility builder. So this will kind of help map you through that from an organic marketing approach, which is non-paid, and also have an offshoot to inorganic, which are things like M&A, more paid ads, these kinds of things. So anyways, you guys can kind of look at that and guide them through wherever you're personally at to help kind of figure out where those initial gaps might be. Okay, so now I've got, one thing, again, just one thing that works really well. That's kind of the main takeaway here. Aligning with your business goals. And I'm going to give you kind of the last piece of this is just a case study. I wanted to talk about a firm we've worked with now for, gosh, probably like 5 or 6 years, and just talk you through kind of where they were at, and a simple change to their marketing that's made a really big difference. And I chose this case study because, again, I feel like it's an example that a lot of firms could relate to a lot of firms. So anyways, I'll get into it. Okay, so their challenge was that they basically needed to attract qualified prospects. They needed to start to pull them in, more of a top of the funnel effort. So this is where they were, going back to these 4 rings, right? They were in a position where they had identified their business strategy. So it was a team of 2 advisors. They had bought over the firm from the founder, and they were in their seats. They went through a whole strategic planning exercise. Through that, they decided they were going to gut the whole office, take away the old, bring in the new, and really start to go, we're ready to now like put ourselves out there as this new firm. They identified clear target markets, both firm-wide and advisor-specific target markets. They went through a website redesign. So now we've already gone business strategy, marketing strategy. They got into website redesign. They did social media. They had that going on regularly. They had a regular e-newsletter drip, and they were doing bi-monthly blog posts. So they had all this great stuff going on. So going back to the dog analogy, they're in a great position. They have this beautiful beach landscape. They were like in their prime, ready to go, but they were digging a hole, and it kind of felt like a hole to nowhere because they're like, hey, we've got all these things going on. Like, we've got leads that are coming in from our referrals. We've got them coming in from our current clients. We're doing upsells, but we need to diversify our lead sources. Like, I'm digging here and like, what's going on? So this was really the problem. What was like, what's going on is part of the problem. We identified that they were creating content to create content, which is nice to be able to create content to create content. But the problem is that in their heads, they felt like they were adding value, but it wasn't the kind of value that was really tailored in a way that was tighter against what their target market really, really needed. And they were going a million miles, and they were going off of gut to be able to just get it out to hit a cadence, but they weren't really making data-driven decisions, and they needed to take a step back to be able to say, we're spending all this efforts this way, like where are we actually going to make sure that it's aligned with our target and what they really need. So what we did, just like this pup who's trying to get through, this walkway here, is we took a step back and we got data. So we did a deep dive on SEO research, and we said, okay, we've got clear target markets. We saw the opportunity strategically within the business to say, okay, advisor A and advisor B have bandwidth to be able to take on more clients. Each of them has a clear target market. Let's go into the research and see amongst the blue ocean if there's a little bit of red ocean that we can actually put our efforts towards. And we're able to identify that. So that allowed us to put very specific KPIs against keyword research, so SEO research. And then it allowed us to put together a tailored plan about what blog posts we would write, how long we would write them, what our target actually wanted, where we needed to update the website. And all of a sudden, what you started to see is that their content was starting to deliver against their KPIs. They were hitting those KPIs with being not only on page 1, but at the top, within the top 3. And it's not only is it starting to be able to pull in those prospects, right? Those very defined prospects, but when those advisors who are attached with those specific audiences were also doing things like sitting on boards or going to conferences or working other centers of influence related to that target market, all of these things started to work in harmony because we're all talking to the same audience and it's validating what's going on. So it works synergistically with the efforts that were already going on, and we were really hitting very specific pain points for what their audience was looking for. So it took a lot of, it took away we got everything in place we got everything in place and we're moving, but now we've got it against a business strategy so that we're hitting our objectives. So I just want to kind of share that case study because again, it's a firm that they didn't go after a podcast, which not everybody wants to be on video. They didn't go after like fancy events or anything like that, which that works for some firms, but they picked something that worked for them and what they felt comfortable doing, and they aligned their efforts against it. And so we're starting to see, because now they've gone all in on that. Now we're starting to see those efforts, pay it forward. So again, just aligning your efforts against your business goals is really kind of the key takeaway here. And there's a lot that you can do. But part of it is identifying the tactics that's the right fit for your firm, and really just like, doesn't have to be perfect when you get started. It never is. Just like any business, when you get going, it's never perfect and it's always changing and growing, but you just keep turning dials to make it stronger and stronger. So I'm going to open it up for Q&A. I think we've got plenty of time here. I've been chatting away, so would love any questions you guys have specific to either your firm or to what we've covered today. I'm happy to just answer questions that you might have.
I second Trevor's comment about great job. This is very timely and thought-provoking. I appreciate what you put together.
Yeah, absolutely. I see a question here. You want me to snag that one, Kate, about the blogs?
Go for it. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so let's see. Not sure about which bang for just started a blog, not long enough, don't know if it works. Okay. So if it works, it's probably going to be an SEO question to figure out if the topic is one where there's actually an opportunity to put against it. So that's going to help. If you go through the research, you identify your KPIs, it's going to help you to know if kind of the juice is worth the squeeze for putting together blog content. I will tell you that usually SEO rich blog content is very Kitsa style. It's like 2,000 word count, these sorts of things. But sometimes it's kind of paired with that and a little bit of a mix of different pages and updates on your website. So sometimes it's less about like quantity and more about quality with blogs. So I just kind of want to call that out as well. So you might have a really great topic, but it might just not be kind of juicy enough for Google's algorithm, which means that it might not show up in search results. I just don't know without kind of getting into the depth of it.
Got a couple more questions here. Any thoughts on when a firm should hire an agency versus developing, utilizing existing personnel to manage social media posts, maintain website, et cetera, et cetera?
Okay, so we see honestly a mix of all of this at firms of all different sizes of AUM. A lot of times we'll come into a situation where a lot of firms are managing their own social post, but they get to a place where they go, we need to outsource this, or we need somebody to be able to help kind of leverage this in a different way, or make it kind of, I'll call it like more strategic, kind of like tie a bow around all of it. There is for any blog content that's written, I'd advise that you have someone on your team be part of the content, especially if it's not just a general piece. This goes back to the voice and tone kind of comment around the marketing strategy. The way that you all talk, the way that you speak with your clients, and your deep knowledge of these expertise should help guide the content. And that guiding, if you like writing and that's part of your art, you can ghostwrite it, and it can even be formed by an SEO outline and be copy edited with support. Or you could frankly jump on the horn with someone. You can just chat their ear off and they can turn it into more of an organized outline and ghostwrite it for you. But I think that that's kind of when you get to a place of time and effort and you're looking to elevate that and maybe use your team's time in a different way is a good kind of a chance to explore if outsourcing is something that's a fit for where you're at. But I wouldn't want to lose that component of your voice. And with all the firms we work with, we've got advisors that are involved with the content. It's kind of it's a must. So. And I mean, not just for compliance, but really to make sure that your voice is in there.
Another question. We are beginning our marketing process. I was leaning towards in-person meetings. Do you find person slash what? Hold on. Do you find the in-person meeting still works, or did COVID end people's interest in that marketing approach?
Wondering if this is in-person meetings for clients or for I'm assuming it's for clients.
That's my guess.
Okay. Most firms that we work with are doing a lot of virtual. So I think that COVID has something to do with that. I also think it's just the like Gen X primarily. And even that baby boomer generation is still pretty digitally minded. And a lot of people like to be able to not have to meet in person. So having I'll call it ops systems that work for intake that are really smooth for that demographic, and having the option to be able to meet virtually, I think is really nice. That doesn't take away from in person. I still think that there's a place for that, but it just might not be needed at the same volume as it was before. So I also should say I see a lot more firms that are working with clients that aren't just to their specific geography, but that are spread across the nation as well, and even overseas. So
I
yeah.
second that. When we've been designing like calendaring systems and scheduling systems for our clients, 99% of our clients lean towards giving their clients the option to choose in person or virtual. We can structure the calendar which way. But you never want to assume that someone wants to meet in person. Like I don't ever want to go to your office. That's going to take me half a day to get there, wait, have the meeting, get home. I'd rather just log in online versus like my parents. They really appreciate that face to face. I totally second what you say.
You'll have a feel for different types of clients. You'll know your clients that they love meeting in person, and that's
For
just who
sure.
they are. So I think though it really it varies. The other thing that I feel like I wish more firms would do is just have more of a digital payment option. There's a lot of kind of still old school mailing, and so many people just like that digital payment. So, these now I'm getting into sort of like tactical, more operational things, but when we talk about kind of digital versus in person, I think it's important to start to lean towards a more a digital first option.
Diane has a question. Do you have any thoughts on the LinkedIn Copilot product to reach out to prospects?
Is this like Sales Navigator, I'm assuming? They have a
I'm
few
not a
different
LinkedIn
kind
expert.
of additions. If it's Sales Navigator, I have Sales Navigator. I've used it for a number of years. I'll tell you this, and there's tons of LinkedIn like automated. I'm sure all of us get them, 1,000,000,001 messages, like invites for stuff. They
Mhm.
only work, and this is just so true, I think, for cold outreach in general. It's gotta be warm. If it's a cold outreach, it's gotta be warm. Like, and I think it depends on what you're outreaching for. Um, you don't want to ask someone to marry you on the first date, right? So this is a little bit of like I see kind of cold outreach, narrowing down prospects, nurturing those when you're going to offer them something of value first. Maybe you've got an opportunity for them to come on your podcast. Maybe they might be a great fit for a webinar that you're doing. Maybe there's a seminar that's coming up. You're offering them something that's of value. You get to build a relationship, and you keep them in that nurturing that part of the funnel. So I think that like Sales Navigator, it's amazing because it's kind of like you can go buy 1,000,001 leads. It's not going to work. You're going to have to drip on them just as much, right? Like they're cold. This is a warm business. That's why referrals work so well. So you really want to be able to focus on, you can use Sales Navigator, which is awesome, but you just like a cold list, you've got to nurture them. So
Mhm.
yeah.
Isn't that true? Okay, Francesca asks, do you survey your clients about what information they want?
Um, oh, like for maybe what they want it's in terms of marketing.
That's my guess. Francesca, if you
Okay.
wouldn't mind elaborating.
Yeah, so yeah, feel free to okay, yes. Okay. So what happens is we will usually in the initial discovery help to get into that business strategy to understand where the firm is at. And a lot of that is really telling to identify if we need to kind of flesh out more of the marketing strategy, or if we're at a place where we can go, okay, we've got enough clarity here. Like it doesn't have to be perfect, but we've got enough. We know where north is, and we can at least put together an overall one sheet that's going to help us to then go, we're anchoring in on project X, right? So through that discovery, then we can start to kind of trim the fat, and then we can make a specific tactical recommendation as we start to get to know the firm based off of data as well, and then help to basically map our project plan and our game plan forward. So there's like a survey, but the survey is more of like an intake, and then it's a
Yeah.
collaboration. It's a little bit of a dance to be able to say like, okay, yes, that feels right, and this is where we want to put our efforts, and this is also what the data is saying, and then we're also like, so we work with a lot of firms, and this is also what we see as an area of expertise. So it's less of like transactional and much more of like a partnership of collaboration to be able to implement I'll say said tactics. So
Very cool.
any other questions?
These are good questions. We got some time, guys. If anybody has any other questions, feel free to fire them away. Lauren, this is amazing. You are a wealth of knowledge. This was awesome. I
Oh, good.
greatly appreciate you donating your time again and sharing
Yes.
wisdom with everybody. I don't see any other questions coming through, but I just want to reiterate that this is recorded. I will be sending out a follow-up. Lauren's got all of her contact information here. I love following you guys on LinkedIn. I learn things from you all
Oh,
the
thanks.
time. So get in touch. I will be in touch with everybody with follow-ups. The flow charts that you put together look awesome. I can't wait to look at them. Yeah, thank you, Lauren.
Yeah.
I look forward to doing this again. We'll have to do this more regularly because I feel like we just kind of scratched the surface on tapping into your wisdom and your knowledge. You got so much to share. So thank
Oh, you're
you.
so kind. Yeah, this was really fun. If anyone has very specific questions about their firm, don't hesitate to reach out. I'm happy to chat or what have you and go deeper into specific tactics or what have you. But I'm hopeful that those sheets will also help to maybe kind of give you a little bit of a flow for what some options are. But again, it's very firm specific and a lot works. But I think that if any takeaway, I hope that you're with a takeaway of like crush one activity, layer it on, the next one, layer it on, and then use the data to be able to help continue to trim the fat and move forward. So
One thing at a time. No,
one thing
that
at a time, one foot in
really
front of the other.
resonates.
Yes.
Well, thank you, my friend. I appreciate your time and everybody else that hung out today. I will be in touch, Lauren. We got to do this again. So thank
Awesome.
you.
Love it. Thanks, guys.
Adios, guys.